Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Movies with Moira and Shannon. I'm here with the fabulous Moira. Gia Mateo, have I said your last name right? Because I like to slaughter last names. Is that how
No,
you say it?
you said it perfectly.
All right. And good time to ask you now. But you never know. Always good to check in. And I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is just a passion project that people we kept responding to each other, and people kept calling us the Siskel and Ebert of parents of people on the spectrum, and so we just decided to go for this, and it's been one of the great treats in my life in these last couple of years. So thrilled to be here. I want to just small programming note. I want to say that we pre-recorded this, so because we've been moving our studio and we're in the studio now, but we don't have things up and running. So we pre-recorded this, but we appreciate you participating right now. We're premiering it live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, so you guys can still be writing in and reacting. Um, but it is pre-recorded. So having said that, I didn't ask you, do we have any updates from Taka?
Yes, we are excited that we're getting ready to launch the early bird sale for the conference in October. That should be happening within the next several weeks. So keep your eyes peeled because that'll be the cheapest price you can get it for the conference. But for those of you in California, if you're a regional center client, they also cover this. So that's, I think you're allowed one conference per year with regional center, depending on your plan. Um, and one of the things I've been excited about we featured over April the admin staff of our Hope and Help for Autism private Facebook group, and they are just amazing women and incredibly knowledgeable. And it's just like they're just such a great resource. Hope and Help for Autism, you can lurk, and you don't have to post. Everybody in there is a parent, and you have to answer questions to kind of prove that you're a parent. I mean, we're not like, we just want to keep the space safe because we've had people come in trying to sell and trying to, whatever. But it is amazing. It's very well moderated, and it's a terrific resource. So I love those ladies. They're incredible. And so yeah, so stay tuned into that. And then there's a lot of posts they make about, hey, this is happening, that is happening. It's a good way to kind of be in the loop, and you'll know when the early bird rate is coming up for the conference in October. October 10th is day one of the conference, and it's back in Costa Mesa, same hotel, and fun times.
I will be there,
Yay!
and Moira will be there. So come and meet us and have some fun and check it out. I always say it's the best thing going. It's a wonderful opportunity to recharge your batteries, find something new, meet like-minded people, and look around the room and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one."
Mhm.
And there's just answers and an ideal place to ask questions. It's a really good thing, you guys, if you have the opportunity, and it's so close to Disneyland. If you're not from California, come and do the thing and drop in on the parks.
Right.
Because there's more than Disneyland. There's also everything is close, right? But it's a really worthwhile thing. It's very listen, I'm not a very social butterfly. I don't know if you guys know this about me. I'm not good in social situations. It's not my favorite thing ever to go to a conference. But so I have to drag myself sometimes, but this is one that I love to make an exception for because it's a really good time. And I learned so much, and I get to see Moira. And I get to meet some of you. So that's a wonderful thing. Anything else from Taka, or should we jump into the movie?
Let's jump into what we've been watching.
Okay. So I'm gonna there. Hopefully you guys will be able to see our little blurry logo because we're doing it this way. But we're gonna launch right in here.
Okay.
And I just want to say there's some very interesting things in our lineup this week that we're talking about, and this is one of them.
This,
So I'm gonna let Moira talk first, but what we're talking about for those of you listening, adolescence. So
yes.
here we go.
Yes, Adolescence. This is a surprising show for Netflix, in my opinion, because it feels like a BBC show imported from the UK. So it starts in an English town when police raid a family home and arrest Jamie Miller, a 13-year-old boy. Jamie is suspected of murdering his classmate, Katie Leonard. This show was emotional, intense, and completely compelling. I felt wrung out by the end, and it was only 4 episodes. So it was amazing. Each episode is shot in a continuous take, which I actually didn't notice initially. I just was kind of wondering, why are they following people down hallways? But then very quickly it became like very integral to the tension, of the entire process. And yeah, and so because sometimes that can be a little gimmicky when they do that, but I think it worked really well. Of course, the creators of this, Stephen Graham, he stars as the father in this storyline, Jamie's father, and Jack Thorne. They're the two that are the creators. The standout in this is Owen Cooper. Owen Cooper plays Jamie Miller, the boy accused of murdering his classmate Katie. And the episode where Jamie is interviewed and kind of being assessed by a female psychologist is riveting, absolutely riveting. I'm getting chills just remembering it. Now, what I found out on the internet, this is Owen Cooper's acting debut. The Stephen Graham, who is an award-winning actor himself, who plays Jamie's dad, was so impressed with this kid's audition, he turned to his co-writer and said, "I think that's him." And the acting skills that this kid has managed to find came from going to a once-a-week theater group, for kids. I mean, so he's amazing. And a lot of the reviews, I was reading different reviews of it, and the focus is really the toxic world that our adolescent boys are exposed to on the internet. And that some of the dialogue in the show specifically mentions Andrew Tate, who I do not recommend that you look up. Just know he's a self-proclaimed misogynist and has run-ins with the law for sex trafficking minors. Not a great guy. Adolescence kind of, I feel like it showed us the risks of this sort of manosphere, toxic masculinity, and how it's sort of the rise of people, incels, which if you don't know that term, incel is involuntarily celibate. They're these men and young men and out there feeling angry that women are not attracted to them, and that is dealt with in this drama, where it's kind of like, hey, this is the way it is or whatever, and we deserve this, or I mean, the weird entitlement. And this, I think, was an amazing show to really dive deep into that issue. The actors in it were all just amazing. I mean, Ashley Waters is he had actually stopped acting and came back for this, and now feels re-energized. And he plays the one of the detectives. Faye Marcy is also one of the detectives that's trying to solve this issue. Yeah, so I thought it was incredible. I don't know if I could watch it again because it was so intense. But what are your feelings on this one?
I didn't love it.
No?
No, I appreciated it. And there are an awful lot of things that I appreciated about it. I think you're right that the acting was really wonderful. The camera work will win awards.
Mhm.
There, like my dad, first, my dad was a technical director, but he had been a cameraman for a lot of years. And a lot of my early formative years watching television and movies, my dad would be like, look at that shot, look at that shot. So I've sort of been trained to like look at things. So I noticed that it was one shot fairly early on. And there's one particular shot that they do that is epic, that is just like, when I think about what they would have had to have done, because you're in a steady cam and it becomes a drone shot, goes across town and drops in a scene that's happening, and you don't see any PAs anywhere. I'm like, okay, that, that's pretty amazing. I think it's already changing the way they're shooting things. but I it's not the subject matter that I especially want to see. I don't think it was dealt with properly. I felt that it was very manipulative for the audience. It really kept going for your jugular. And but I want to be careful of spoiler alerts. There were there that the scene with the psychiatrist, you're right. I think it's amazing. I think this kiddo is an amazing actor. And obviously Stephen Graham is an actor of the highest caliber who was wanting to elevate his game. I understand he's getting ready to play the dad in the movie about Springsteen, playing Springsteen's
Oh.
dad, with Jeremy Allen White. And I think this is an actor who had a passion project and wanted to get himself as well known in the States as he is in England. And it kind of played that way. I felt that there was, like a bending of reality that I did not appreciate when we're going to talk about mental health issues and signs of things. I think it really, it's not what I want to watch, but I appreciated it.
Mhm.
Uh, and I thought that the acting was incredibly well done. The camera work was incredibly well done. But I feel like the arc of it and how they built characters, I take issue with. So
Mhm.
that's me.
Yeah.
Shall we go on to the next one, or you want to rebut?
No, I think I think that's an interesting perspective, and yeah, the manipulation aspect of it in particular, I'm like, because there is a lot of emotion, and yeah. So, but I just, yeah, I liked it. I
and
liked
and that's wonderful. um but because we have different tastes in things. This
it.
isn't the subject matter that I want, but I also, I had issues.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go on to the next one, The Life.
The Life List. This was directed by Adam Brooks, starring Carson, Kyle Allen, Connie Britton, Sebastian D'Souza, and Jose Zuniga. A young woman, played by Sophia Carson, embarks on a journey of self-discovery. I'm telling you, I'm cribbing these notes from the blurbs now because it's
Yeah.
just easier. So she's working through a list of life goals she wrote as a teenager at the request of her late mother, played by Connie Britton. She navigates this messy process of a kind of a second coming of age, confronting grief and trying to figure out how to navigate life, without her mom. And she every time she works through the structure it was pleasing because every time she works through an item on the life list, she gets another DVD of the mom that mom had prepared ahead of time. So she gets a little visit with her mom along the way and more words of wisdom. This was a really sweet movie. It made me cry. I loved that they used this song, That's Not My Name, which is by the Ting Tings. And I love that they used that as a way to show these characters connecting, because I love that song. And they had really good chemistry. Both men that are prospective love interests both had good chemistry. And I don't know. I thought that was like surprising because you're like, oh wow, usually it's little more clear. And then I loved how the siblings discovered more about each other through this process as well. It was sweet. I thought it was a sweet film. I'm glad I watched it. And I remember I texted you and said, "Oh, I'm not crying, you're crying," and you were like, "Well, you tell me what you said."
Well, what I said is that this movie, as it turns out for me, is like Chinese food, and good Chinese food. I'll admit that. When I watched it, because I watched it before you did, and I said, "Oh, this is one of the movies that I watched. If you want to watch it, because we can review it." But by the time you watched it and you texted me and you said you were crying, I was like, "Huh, what's she crying about?" Because I couldn't remember. And I even took a moment last night to sort of refresh myself a little bit with the plot. Apparently not enough, because when you just said, "Oh, the two love interests," and I was like, right, right. Like this movie just, I remember enjoying it when I watched it, but it did not stay with me. It
It's
was
sticking.
like poof, and it was gone, and it was like out of sight, out of mind. It just, but I mean, for one of those guilty pleasures, when you need a little couch time, I remember enjoying it. you
Mhm.
I, I don't remember crying at the end, but you were crying. And it's a bit of fluff. Did it change my life? It did not.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and honestly, I feel like that it was a better quality Hallmark type film, in my opinion. Because I haven't yet found, and that maybe that's one whole episode we need to do for Christmas, is which ones are good of the Hallmark Christmas movies. Because I enjoy them. I watch them, but they're very forgettable. This one was like a level above that. So that was what it
I
was
don't
for.
think I'll be honest with you, because I love my Hallmark movies, as you know. Um, and I can remember the plots. Like you can show me a picture and I can tell you if I've seen the movie, and I can tell you what the plot was. I couldn't do that with this.
Wow.
So, I don't know. But it might be because there is a formula that I love about the Hallmark movies,
Yeah.
which, I know I'm not alone, but I know it's not everybody's thing. But this, I enjoyed it. Gone from the files of my mind. Poof.
Hey,
Um, Gone.
that's fine. Sometimes it's just okay to be entertained and move on.
It was
Yeah,
good Chinese. It was good Chinese food.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Okay. Love on the Spectrum, the US version, season 3.
Season 3, we're back. And this is, if you haven't seen this show before, it's about people on the autism spectrum navigating the world of dating. In this season, we're reconnected with a lot of folks that we know: Abby, David, Connor, Danny, James, Tanner, um, Adnan, and then we also meet some new folks: Madison and Georgie, Tyler, Perry, and Tina. So, I mean, their names are on the screen right now, and you can look it up. They are lovely people, and I think this show is lovely. I am rooting for all of these fabulous young adults to find love. I also love that the show is open to LGBTQ relationships, since there actually is a higher percentage among the autism spectrum of folks that identify as such. So I'm like glad to see that they're showing that. And I love that this show is bringing the experience of these folks to the world. But I'm often reminded as I watch it of the phrase, if you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism. These folks definitely represent parts of the spectrum, but there are also so many other experiences that are, not necessarily represented. But that being said, I feel like in these particularly tense times, we have to be careful to not fall into a yelling match over that's not my autism, because I think that that's what we tend to do as a community. And I hate that. My hope is that we can continue to broaden representation across the spectrum, because there's so much that we need to learn from these unique voices. And there's so many that are not kind of being featured in such a wonderful way as these folks are. So, I don't know. It was a rough April, I think. So,
Ooh,
Autism
isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Acceptance Action Month, whatever you call it. It was a bit of a roller coaster this month.
Yeah.
But I binged this all and I adored it. The relationship between Connor and Georgie was, oh, I mean, like, so my heart just leapt for them. It's just wonderful. So worth the watch. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to give the disclaimer that I know most of these people, and some of them I knew quite well before they started filming this. So, I have to put that out there. And and I know a lot of people that are involved in it. I know the people who are heavily involved with casting, and every time they're getting ready to cast, they reach out to me and say, "Is there anybody you want to refer?" So if there's somebody watching and you're like, "Oh, I want to be the next person on the show," or I know somebody, let me know, because they always ask me.
Mhm.
And more often than not, I'm like, I got nobody, you guys. You already have all the people that I know who would want to do this and have this scrutiny. Because let's be honest, this is a lot of scrutiny. And not just for the individual who's on the spectrum, but for anybody they come in contact with, their friends and their family. I mean, we're in their homes.
Yes.
And that's a big deal to say yes to that. But I totally agree with you too. And I know from, the casting people, I know they're always looking because let's be honest. I mean, as you said, one person with autism, one person with autism. I do think that, on the show, we see that even, James's type of autism on the show is not the same as Tanner's, is not the same as Adon's, is not the same as Connor's, right? And again, with the women, it's all diverse. But having said that, they've covered a lot of different people. I've not seen anybody on the show that represents my son, and I don't think you have either. So there's still many, many, many stories for them to tell. The question is there somebody that has different stories that wants to be on the show?
That,
So
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, because it's a big commitment.
it is. And, you know, I've seen some ups and downs and some, obviously there are some benefits to being on the show, but there are some, you're put in the public eye for people to say whatever they want to say. And I
Yes.
feel very protective of my friends that are on the show because I know they get some heat from time to time about different things that they say or they do. And I just want to remind everybody these are real people who are really on the spectrum who don't have the ability to lie, that they
Mhm.
are just being themselves. And so there were a lot of things that it's so funny when this comes out, I'm always hesitant. Like
Mm,
I'm always worried. And it is, I don't watch it the first day that it comes out because I'm like, oh, and then I watch it and binge it and love it and cry. But I'll
mhm,
tell you the thing that I love the most about this show is that then I sort of sit and watch. And I used to teach college. I have a lot of former students in my life and on my Facebook, right?
mhm,
And I like to watch. And there's one student of mine, he was a student of mine, I'm not kidding, like almost 40 years ago now. It's like tragic, right? um but and he's not a part of my life in the autism community. And he posted on his Facebook and he said, just watch Love on the Spectrum season 3. I'm not crying, you're crying, exactly
mhm.
what you told me about
Yeah.
life. And I thought, here is this man who is probably, in his, well, my goodness, he's probably in his mid 40s by now, that really doesn't move in the same circles that you and I move. And he's watching this, and
Mhm,
his heart was in it for these people finding love. And
mhm,
that is something I just don't think we can purchase. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So for that alone, I'm so, and I think it's tilting the tide a little bit because I think before they even did the Australia ones, I don't think it was on people's radar to consider that the autism community loves.
Yeah.
And how tragic is that?
Yeah.
How tragic and false and inappropriate is that? But, I think it's hard because sometimes I'm like, oh, it's good television, and sometimes I'm worried about my friends and how much they're exposing themselves.
Right.
I think it's funny. I haven't talked to Danny, but this had to have been a really tough.
I actually had the privilege of having dinner when because the some of the cast of Love on the Spectrum were keynote speakers at
That's
our conference last year,
that's
and
right.
I ended up sitting next to Danny and her aunt and uncle that she lives with,
Yeah.
and I'm too. I'm very protective of of our folks, and she was hurt. She was really hurt this season, and she talked a lot about the backlash in social media and how difficult that was. And the aunt and uncle are so sweet, and they were talking about how you kind of don't even see the cameras anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what they want because then you're, more natural, and there are things that are like, whoa, I kind of wish I hadn't done or said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Danny lost a friendship over all of this stuff
Yeah.
that happened in this season. And I was like, and she's just such a,
Yeah.
like you said, that honesty, that openness,
Yeah.
and to your point, yes, they have feelings. I mean, for God's sake, that's an old ancient trope about, well, they don't have any feelings or whatever. It's like, no, I think they feel even more.
Yes.
The people that are in my life that I know,
Yeah.
and so yes, I feel like I'm glad that that people are being cut some slack maybe because of this show, and people that are completely unfamiliar with our world are getting a peek at it. But I do worry about the social media, although I think it could be really like it could be successful for business for them. I mean, because you're
Absolutely.
getting a platform and whatever. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. And Christina, Abby's mom, I think handles the social media really well, and the
Yeah.
backlash that she's gotten from it. I know you interviewed her and Abby a while back, and I was like just riveted and thought she was just amazing. So yeah, it's an interesting
Yeah.
world that we
It
live in.
really is. And for me, it's so 6 degrees because Christina,
Mhm.
it's funny, I've known Christina for more than 40 years.
Mm,
I just didn't realize I knew her when I was going to graduate school because she was good friends with one of the people I was going to graduate school with. Christina is the reason why I do red carpets. She didn't
mm,
know that, and I didn't know that she was Abby's mom. So many
mm,
years later, I met Abby, didn't, and then I just never met her mom. I would always see Abby in these different things, and Abby came up to me and introduced herself to me, like 10 years ago, but I didn't know who her mom was. So when we were being introduced, I was like, wait a minute, why do I know you? So that's how small the world is.
mhm.
But yes, these are parents and uh and I always think of Danny's aunt and uncle as her parents. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I hate when people say caregiver. I
Mm.
just I just don't like that term. I don't, and those are her parents.
Oh,
Are they her biological parents? No, they are not. But they are her parents in and I know them well, and they're her parents in every sense of the word.
mm.
Um, except, that biologically she's the aunt. End of story. But are you that way? Do you not mind? Do you hate it when somebody calls you a caregiver? I
I don't,
just
I don't mind. And it's funny because I think we've had to use it at Taka because sometimes it's a grandparent or that an aunt and uncle that has stepped in, and so we just use the term parents and caregivers. So I'm used
yeah.
to it.
Oh,
Um,
me too.
yeah,
All the time in my job, I'm told I have to use the term caregiver, but I don't know a single person who is like the grandmother who is the person who's taking care and parenting who doesn't appreciate being called a parent.
mm,
You know what I mean? But caregiver sounds to me like, we're
somebody's hired. Yeah, that's been hired to do something. Yeah, I can see that. I can see
takes all the emotion out of it. And there's a lot of emotion, as we know.
that.
Anyway, but I do recommend this wholeheartedly. It aside from everything else, it is brilliant television. Uh,
Mhm.
but the heart of it, to see these young people and to pull for them, as you said, I do love it.
Yes. Yeah, me too. Me too. And
Yeah.
that brings us to Nobody Wants This. Um, this is creator Aaron Foster, starring Adam Brody, Kristen Bell, Justin Lupe, Jackie Tawn, Emily Arlick, and among others. It's the blurb for this one is an agnostic sex podcaster and a newly single rabbi fall in love, discovering if their relationship will survive their wildly different lives and meddling families. That's the little blurb. So Kristen Bell plays Joanne, and she and her sister Morgan, played by Justine Lupe, do a really funny, irreverent podcast together. And of course, Joanne runs into a cute guy named Noah, and sparks fly. They may not be compatible culturally, but the attraction cannot be denied. This show was so much fun. It's been renewed for a second season, so we get to spend more time in this world, which I'm glad of. Watching the two leads, again, great chemistry, which I'm always pleased by because sometimes you're like, not feeling it, but these folks have really good chemistry and interaction with they each have with their families is hilarious. One of the other actors that's in it is Timothy Simons. He's a real tall guy. He plays Sasha. I'm glad to see him in this role because it gives him a sweetness that you normally don't see because he's normally the jerk. He's normally like the guy that you're like, oh, that guy, So it's nice to see him playing a different role, and it's unusual characters, and you can tell that for all their foibles and interference, there's a lot of love in these families. I mean, that some of the interference is a little over the top, but you can tell it's coming from a place of love and that they have terrible boundaries. But I love the dialogue, particularly between Kristen Bell and Justine Lupe as sisters. It's just rapid fire, and I was laughing. I was in stitches. So I really enjoyed it. What were your thoughts?
Oh, well, I
Uh-oh.
think, yeah, I think I didn't want to like it.
Oh,
I like, I'm going to be honest about that. I sort of look at this is that it's kind of a wannabe Sex in the City mashed with, what's the Phoebe Waller, Fleabag.
Fleabag. Fleabag.
Fleabag that because we have this person who is writing about sex, and sort of exploitatively writing about sex, but she's interested in this person of the cloth. I guess it's a little bit Bridget meets Bernie, which is a very old reference for people who are not my age. A million years ago there was a TV show, a sitcom that was called Bridget Loves Bernie, and it was about a Catholic girl who falls in love with a Jewish rabbi.
Mm.
Okay. Part of me is like, really? Like, is this that big of a deal? Like, we have to have a whole mini series about how somebody who's an agnostic can be with a rabbi? Really? Like that, the premise of it and that obstacle just kept getting in my way.
Really?
Um,
Mm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a Kristen Bell fan. I want to like her, and everything I see her in, she just rubs me the wrong way. I feel very confidently that there was something, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but she and I were having kids around the same time, and she made a comment about parenting kids on the spectrum that was from a place of complete and total ignorance. I don't even remember what she said, and it might, but she should not be talking about what it's like to parent somebody on the spectrum. I'm just going to say that. And ever since then, she just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah. Mm.
Adam Brody, I loved. And so I got through it because of that. But I thought the obstacle was just really boring. So she doesn't believe in God and he's a rabbi, boring. Could we have something more than that? And I don't like it when we have female heroes that it's like, well, it's the opposite of slut shaming. And I want to be careful what I say here. I don't like it when we have things that are slut shaming, but I also don't like it when we exalt this whole thing about, oh, but it's okay that I'm, waking up and not knowing who I slept with. And that's how I took her relationship with her sister, because her sister is like, I don't, we're not going to have anything to do our podcast about if you're being monogamous with somebody. You're going to
Mm.
be boring. It just, you know,
Mm.
I was like, really? That's how thin this plot is. But did I watch it all? Will I watch the second season? Probably, because of Adam Brody. I liked I liked aspects. I liked seeing how they kept working things out. But
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel, we've talked before about, I love K dramas and they create an environment in which there is true
Long.
longing, and there's a
Yeah.
reason why the stars can't get together and they can't align. And when that isn't working for me, I just go, really, with all the ideas in the world, you couldn't have found something better than that? I
Mm.
don't know. It was thin for me.
You know,
So,
it's interesting you say that about the obstacle being he's Jewish and she's not, only because I went to a naming ceremony from one of my dear friends who she was Jewish and her husband was not. And the rabbi actually said something about that Jewish people should just, that in order to, uh, I don't know what the wording he used exactly, but he was kind of bemoaning the fact that there were a lot of Jewish people that were marrying non-Jewish people.
yeah,
And I was like, whoa, because I thought,
yeah.
yeah, no, you read the room, dude. But it was interesting that that attitude existed. So I guess because of that experience, I didn't have as big a trouble. But I know it seems it's wildly old-fashioned, in terms
Yeah.
of like that being the obstacle. But yeah, but
And I do think that I mean, there's a very real thing in the Jewish community that if the mom is the one who carries the Judaism down to the children.
right.
So if your son is marrying a shiksa, then
Yeah.
that means your grandchildren aren't going to have
Not
Judaism.
Jewish. Yeah.
And and that's a very real thing among that community. But
But yeah.
it's
Yeah.
done so much now. Um,
Yeah.
and if you're going to do that, then I got to see more. And the fact that he was a rabbi and he wasn't going to get promoted, okay, a little bit, but
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
it wasn't enough for me. I needed more of an obstacle. They needed to layer it a little bit more, and I just didn't. It was okay. I watched it, but yeah, meh, meh. Uh, you
All
know,
right.
all right. And then to the pits.
We're on to The Pit, created by R. Scott Gemmell, starring Noah Wiley, Taylor Dearden, Patrick Ball, Catherine Lanasa, Issa Briones, I did it right, Fiona Dourif, Sabana Aziz, Tracy I oh wow, that's a name. I feature, I think. You feature? I don't know how to say that name. Garen Howell, Kobe Bird, and Tal Anderson. Noah Wiley is back as an ER doctor, and boy, are we glad. This is a 15 episode series, and each episode is 1 hour in the shift of this ER in Pittsburgh. It's shot in real time, but unlike Adolescence, it's not one continuous shot. We do cut away. And of course, we have the fabulous guest star moment for Kobe Bird. That was wonderful. I was like, oh, he was great as usual. The cast is comprised of a lot of new faces, aside, and of course, Noah Wiley aging like fine wine.
Mm,
It's
mm,
just, dreamy, gotten better looking as he's gotten older. Love it. And the internet is ablaze with how hot Noah Wiley is. So
mhm.
good for him. But he brings like a solid, calm presence, but with a melancholy air about him in this character. And this is what we used to call appointment TV. If you remember, the episodes are dropping 1 week to week. And that was actually good because this was really intense. And so, because by the end of the episode, it's just, yeah, it's amazing. But so I don't know if it's a bingeable show. Maybe for some shows are really great when you binge them, and some it's harder to binge. And but I'm looking forward. It's been renewed for season 2. I love Fiona Dourif, so I'm glad to see her. And then her actual dad in real life, made a cameo as her dad in the show, and I was like, oh, there's Brad Dourif, So I was very, very happy about that. And I loved it. I thought yeah, it was better than I expected it to be in a weird way. I kind of thought, and I feel like there are certain things we always do. We always have procedurals, right, for the detective, and then we always have some kind of medical drama show. You just have to, and then some kind of lawyer show. We always have, it's like so this fits that bill nicely, and I loved it. What did you think?
Oh my gosh, I loved it so hard. I'm mourning that we have to wait now for season 2. I loved it on so many different levels. I have loved Noah Wiley, as long as he's been on television. And you're right, he has aged so fine. I mean, but still my heart, he has aged so fine. But there's always been an earnestness about him that interestingly enough, that's what I always say whenever I see Kobe act, that there's an earnestness about him, that it's like they're paper thin and the light is shining up out through them. And I'd always said that about Kobe and that it reminded me of Noah Wiley. So to have him on this show with him was just this extra
Yeah.
fabulousness for me. And Noah just shows what an amazing actor he is and
Oh,
what an amazing leader, because I think he really took a leadership role in getting this produced. And the way in which they did this, we can't understate that it's been a really hard couple of years for people in the entertainment industry. And you know that first we had a pandemic that made it so stressful to be on the set for everybody. They literally were risking their lives, and they changed the way the rest of the world looked at PPE because they were doing it successfully. I mean, they did it much more successfully than the sports community. And but then they had the strikes, and then they've had the fires,
mhm.
and a lot of this was shot during the fires. And when you, because of the way they shot it, that a camera could go 360 at any moment and catch all the things that were going on so that we could feel the emotion of the chaos of what's happening in the emergency room. But the fallout of that was that they had hired an army of extras who were employed the almost the entire season.
Yes,
You
yes,
know, and they, anybody who was on set, whether they were a PA or an extra or whatever, wore scrubs, so
scrub.
that at any moment, if they turned the camera around, they weren't going to catch anything other than this environment. It just is an amazing way of looking at production right now. And of course, Noah has done so many interviews about the fact that, it's not ER, that so many things have changed since ER was filmed, that needed to be highlighted about what is it like for people working in this environment now, post COVID, and they have trauma that is, listen, I was working all through COVID, but I worked from home, from the same space that I'm in right now, in my safe little bubble, ordering groceries online. These people went to work every day and put themselves in the line of fire, and they didn't get any thank yous for it. I particularly loved Catherine Lanaza, who plays the person who's at the helm in this ER, who's really
Oh,
making.
the blonde
Oh
nurse.
my gosh, she just tore the guts right out of me. But there were so many people, and a lot of these people are Nepo babies. I hate that term. They just happen to have very successful actors as moms or dads. That
Mm.
I love Taylor Dearden's character. And of course, of course, his name is going to escape
Oh,
me now.
Bryan Cranston. She's Bryan Cranston's
Cranston's
daughter.
daughter.
So yeah,
Uh,
Nepo baby. I know.
right? It's just, there's so
She
many.
delivered. She delivered.
Oh my gosh. And I don't
One
know if you guys realize, because I I love that they told these stories and they took us with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had two, not one, two autism stories that were happening. One that that character's sister had
Mm-hmm.
autism, and that was played beautifully by Tal Anderson, who's been on our show before. Wonderful, authentic, autistic actor. And of course, she runs into Kobe and has to teach one of the other doctors about, this is how you treat someone with respect on the spectrum. I mean, like, come on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't love the show anyway. Come on. I loved it so hard, but when they, in the middle of it, embedded a message about making sure that you give people on the spectrum a fair shake in the emergency room, whoo, stop it now. Stop
Yes.
it. Uh, you're just you're just winning with me, left, right, and center. I thought it was lovely. It was hard. It was harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Graphic. Um, but here's the thing about it. I was pulling for almost all of these characters. I cared deeply. Look at all the names that are listed there on the screen, and I cared about all of them. I
Mhm.
wanted them all to have happiness. I wanted them all to get through this okay. How rare is that in this world of scripts right now where the anti-hero is everything and people are so annoying and characters are people that you're like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
So brilliant show. It's all I've heard anybody talking about. I've been so many places, even when I was watching the red carpet for the Oscars and they were interviewing people at one point. There was a little bit of a lull, and there were a group of three celebrities, and I wish I could remember who they were. But the person said, "So, what are you watching right now?" And the one woman goes, "Oh my God, are you watching The Pit?" And everybody's like, "I know." So it's all I've heard anybody talking about. I hope it gets lots of Emmys. I just loved it.
Loved it. And yeah, Noah Wiley is also taking a leadership role in filming in Hollywood. He wants to have, film in Hollywood. And that this is one of the shows that is filming in Hollywood. And I think a friend of mine will be working a crew member of
Nice.
next season. And that's great because there's not as many shows. It has not ramped back up. And it's worrisome because I feel like that's part of Los Angeles's identity. And I'm like, let's not lose this. So
Yeah.
I love that he's standing up for that. And like you said, I didn't even think about that, the fact that you are really rooting for every single one of these people.
Every single one. That's hard to do and
That
hard
is.
to balance all those stories. I was rooting for all of them. I also want to say that I have heard from multiple people who had different roles in this show. The role, the a lot of the leadership roles were women on behind the scenes on this.
Oh,
How
fabulous.
much do we love that? How much?
I love
I'm
that.
just
I love
saying.
that. Yeah, no, it's a good one. Can't wait. And I'm like you, I'm mad that we have to wait, but it's okay.
Yeah, I'll wait for it. I will. I'll wait for it. I was so sad. I was like, is this the last hour? I don't know what I'll do. But they dropped a ton of interviews, so I've been watching all the interviews with all the
Me
cast.
too. Yes,
I'm
me
just
too.
geeking. Like as much as I was watching the Bridgerton ones, it's really a cult, and I'm a card carrying member. Uh, so there we go. Okay.
Okay, now we are. The movie is It Ends With Us, and this is directed by Justin Baldoni, starring Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, Brandon Sklenar, and Jenny Slate, among others. This is based on the best-selling book of the same name by Colleen Hoover. And trigger warning: this is a story about domestic violence. It is about Lily Bloom, played by Blake Lively, and Lily is realizing her dream of opening a flower shop. She befriends Alyssa, played by the always wonderful Jenny Slate. Lily has an encounter with a handsome stranger on a rooftop named Ryle Kincaid. That's the Justin Baldoni character. They go their separate ways, but coincidentally, Jenny Slate's character, who is now working with Lily in the flower shop, is Ryle's sister. So they reconnect and fall in love in an intense whirlwind. But all is not sunshine and roses. What I liked about this is we're in Lily's point of view, and we actually aren't sure what we're experiencing. And I like that we were, as the viewer, kind of gaslighting ourselves and not really understanding. We're flashing back and forth between when Lily was a teen, experienced her first love, and the present, showing her intense relationship, and then these two worlds collide. And I enjoyed it more than I thought I would because I was like, there's all this drama going on, unfortunately, between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. I don't exactly understand all of it. I do know that it was interesting that she initially filed a sexual harassment complaint, and the next thing he was suing her and for libel and all this different stuff. It appears this weird to be this weird power play media circus, and it's going to be going to court. So I'm sure we're going to hear about it ad nauseum on everything. I don't know what to think about it. Yeah, it's interesting that the topic of this film is about kind of believing what this woman is experiencing, and then we're seeing this very powerful woman, Blake Lively, having to, pull out all the stops to defend herself. So I don't know, but I like I said, I liked it better than I thought I would. it was, I don't know. I was interested in the younger versions of them, of the lovers, from the past. But, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of nah about it. How do you feel?
Well, I had the fortune to have watched the movie before I knew anything about the controversy.
Mm,
And I wish I could give that to everyone because I think it's a great movie.
okay.
Um, I I was in it. I have to say I have been a fan of Justin Baldoni since he was on Jane the Virgin and just loved him and followed him on social media after that. He's a very interesting guy, very intense and motivated to do a lot of good in this world. And I didn't know Blake Lively that well, but I had just binged Gossip Girl, so I was a new fan to Blake Lively. So to see the two of them together, and I really appreciated the way the story was told because it would be hard not to be drawn to him.
Oh yeah.
Be
Oh
hard
yeah.
to, and he does a lot of the right things. And this is what I love about this storytelling is that sometimes women who are with somebody who is abuser, it's like the woman was stupid. Like,
Mhm.
how could you have let yourself? And there's a lot of blame towards the woman. And I thought it showed really beautifully how it's like walking into the swimming pool and you miss things and you gaslight yourself and you say it isn't that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that the men do that too.
Hmm.
And I remember I sat there and I watched it, and when it was over, I just there's just one scene with Justin Baldoni, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just have so much respect for what he just did on the screen. And then I was like, who directed this? Whoever directed this is a genius because I didn't realize it was him. And I went and I looked it up and I was like, good on you. And I was like, why has he been not been nominated for any awards? This is really good directing. Because if you think about it, I always have respect for, and this will be interesting for the next one when we talk about it, but I respect for actors who are willing to play bad guys,
Hmm.
right? And then as a director, directing yourself to play a bad guy, I was like, that's another level. And why is that not being celebrated? And I started Googling, and then I started finding out about the controversy. Now,
Yeah.
I,
Hmm.
I've done a pretty deep dive, but I still can't know everything, right? And I've listened to recordings, and I can't wait to see what happens in court. But the whole thing makes me so sad.
Yes, because it overshadowed.
It
I,
overshadowed the work, but it also makes me sad because I I at the face of it believe both of them.
mm,
Having been an actress and been a director and been in circumstances where stuff happens. And everybody likes to think that an actor who is in the scene is somehow magically, mystically divorced from what is happening. And I'm
mhm,
here to tell everybody that's a lie.
mhm,
You are a person coming into a scene and your character is being abused. Like you need some support to be safe both during and afterward. And everybody likes to act like that isn't the thing, and everybody likes to make fun of these intimacy coordinators, and it's a real thing, my friends.
I
Women.
that makes me want to yell because I when they finally put in intimacy coordinators, I'm like, God, that is why did nobody think of this before? It is exactly what you need. And I think the director was the one that was supposed to kind of be doing that for the actors, but no, I don't like the dismissive attitude towards that, the need for it. Because I'm like, no, there is a need for it. They are vulnerable.
but there
Everybody.
but there is pressure that, oh no, we don't need that. it's
Mhm.
it's not what is the union requires now, and there are reasons why. I mean, I used to do improv, and I got out of improv because stuff happened on stage and people would be like, oh, I was in the moment.
Mm,
And I'm like, no. And then there was a big movement of women saying, we want protection when we're on stage doing improv so that we're not getting growth. and
mhm,
and boy, there was backlash, and I just went, peace out, I'm not participating in this. um
mhm,
because some of the men who were like, in the interest of comedy, we should be allowed to stop your sentence, you're
mhm.
already wrong. And
Mhm.
I feel like I think that Justin, I really honestly believe that he meant well, but
Mhm.
you can't be the director and the abuser and take care of your actress. And
Mhm.
I just wish, instead of being defensive at every gate, instead of saying, but I know I'm a good guy and I know that isn't what I meant, I wish he had stopped at any point and said, I know it wasn't what I meant, but how are you feeling? Let's fix it. Because none of this would have happened. And when you're the director, it's your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you can be someone who doesn't mean anything by what you do and say because you're doing your job as an actor and as a director, but that doesn't mean that that actress was protected, and it doesn't matter. And she did raise alarms and she did speak up, and she's speaking up because other women
Can't.
all
Yeah.
the time say, I wanted to speak up, but I thought it would be the end of my career. And look what is happening to her
Yep.
as a result. And yes, his career is decimated right now. But if he had just stopped being defensive, I don't think that would have happened. So
Yeah.
I'm sending a message of love to him that
Yeah.
I believe that he's a good guy. But I think you blew it on this one, Justin. And I wish you would just say, let me be a vessel to learn.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
would send a message to a whole lot of people.
Mhm.
But the movie, the movie is great. Um, he does a great job of directing, but at what cost?
Yeah. Yeah.
At what cost? And
Yeah.
Blake Lively is a person
Mm.
who was in scenes with someone who is manipulating her
Mhm.
and was manipulating. I mean, it's very clear to me when I listen to the tapes. I'm like, oh, I can see why this happened.
Mhm.
But you
Mm.
know, I feel bad for everybody. And now me who should not be allowed to have an opinion of it shared mine. Uh, what
Well,
about
it makes me want to read the book for sure because I was curious now to go and read the book. And there is another. I don't know if they'll ever make it into a movie, or at least maybe not with this cast. But there's a. It begins with us, which is a sequel to where this story leaves off, and future. So that's kind of
well,
so yeah.
I believe that there is a future in which if he just took responsibility, it would go a long way.
It would go a long
And
way.
say it's not look, I think, have we not all said or done something that we were coming from a place of purity that was taken a different way?
Hmm.
Have we not all? Now, this is that times 700. I get it. And it's people's professional careers. But if we're not human and say, I didn't realize that made you feel that way, and I would never have wanted you to feel that way, it just would go a long way. That's my advice. I'm not his lawyer for
Well,
very good reasons.
stay
Um,
stay
yeah,
tuned.
yes.
All right.
Okay.
Next one.
Yes.
White Lotus season 3. Now this is created by Michael White and it stars Walton Goggins, Amy Lou Wood, Parker Posey, Jason Isaac, Patrick Schwarzenegger, Carrie Coon, Michelle Monaghan, Sam Nivola, Sam Rockwell, Leslie Bibb, Sarah Catherine Hook, Natasha Rothwell, John Grease, and then there's also some amazing. The person that plays the owner is an actress, Lek Patravadi, and
Yeah.
there's older foot. She's the woman that's the owner, and there's footage of her that I'm like, she's been an actress because they showed. I'm like, that's her, like 30 years ago, and so that was kind of cool. And
Yeah.
then the gal that played Mook, the love interest, she is a K-pop sensation person named
Oh,
Lisa Menobal. So yeah, so there's some. It's really cool. It takes place in Thailand, and we have a couple of returning characters from previous seasons. I've watched all the White Lotus ones, and Natasha Rothwell, her character of Belinda, who was the masseuse from Hawaii, who was
right.
supposed to do a business with Jennifer Coolidge's character. She's back, and she's done an exchange program with the White Lotus Resort, so she gets to go to Thailand. Then we also have the Ratliff family, which is Jason Isaacs and Parker Posey, or rich Southern family with their three adult children on a family vacation. And there's some stuff going on FBI investigation, and Jason Isaacs' character is kind of losing it because he's trying to figure out how to maintain his life the way it is. And then we have the three friends, Girlfriend Weekend or Girlfriend Week, with Michelle Monaghan playing Jackie, who is I think it's Jacqueline,
Yeah.
who is um, a TV star, and then her buddies are Carrie Coons and Leslie Bibb, and they have they've gone a little bit of different ways, so that's kind of cool to look, to watch. But for me, I really loved the character of Chelsea, who's played by Amy Lou Wood. She's got this wonderful British accent, and she's the girlfriend to the much older Rick, who is played by Walton Goggins. Rick has a darkness around him that threatens to be his undoing, and she's sunshine, and you're just like, well, you listen to her, just listen to her, and it presents us with another group of mostly unlikable people, acting out their problems in a beautiful setting, and some people die, so it's basically, if you've seen White Lotus, you kind of know what you're in for. I think that it's eye candy because they go to these amazing locations, and I can imagine that these actors may be vying for whatever the next shoot will be, because then they get a couple of months vacation in a beautiful location. They're apparently looking at either Mexico or Egypt for season 4. I looked that up online, and so I was googling Four Seasons resorts because they seem to be doing them at the Four Seasons, and so it's fun drama. I don't know that it's high art. And I think there's certain things that I'm like, well, there are certain plot holes about things that I'm like, that's just dumb, whatever. But I was along for the ride. It was fine. It was just fine. What are your thoughts?
So I'll be honest and say I watched season 1 and I was so excited because I loved a lot of the stars in season 1. And I just found it exhausting because I just didn't like anybody. There was only like one character that I was rooting for. And then there was this sensationalist thing that happened in the finale that I was like, barf, just barf. I wanted to go back to doing stand up just to talk about the finale of season 1 and to riff on how it came up in the writing room. I was like, you jumped the shark. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
So then when season 2 came around, I was like, oh, I really like a couple of the actors in this as well that I really want to watch. And I only made it to like the second episode because they started with this sensationalist BS. And I was like, no, I'm not in for the ride. And so I didn't watch it. And so I wasn't going to watch this. It wasn't on my agenda, but then it's been a little thin lately and I haven't been going to the movies. So I said, okay, I'm in for this. And I have to say, I like it the best of the 3 seasons. I was on the BS radar thing where I was like, where's the BS going to come from? And I don't think it did. I think they calmed their sensationalist stuff down, but I'll talk about what the fallout of that was. But I really struggled. Parker Posey made this whole thing worthwhile. I was turning in every week to watch her, with her Piper. I just thought she was amazing. She better win an Emmy for it. I just loved, and I love Jason Isaacs. So I was in the mix for it, but it was very hard to like anybody but Amy Lou Wood's character.
Mhm.
Character
Mhm.
just kept delivering and being real and kind and a good person in the world. So anyway, we get to the final season of this, and I'm going to try really hard not to give spoiler alerts, but I just want to say my feed and my text and everything was filled with the shocking end of finale of White Lotus season 3, and the celebrities all over my feed going, it's off the chain, it's everything imaginable. It wasn't. It
No.
was it
Mm-mm.
wasn't at all. In fact, I felt like it was a balloon that went, you know, and I didn't like the ending, and it made me want to throw things.
Mm-mm.
Uh, I thought that people got away with stuff. I don't like that. If you've done something bad, I think you should have to pay. I'm very neoclassical like that, you know,
Uh,
and and that and that good people shouldn't have bad things happen to them. Like there should be retribution, right? So I didn't like it. I went, but there was a lot of good performances. I loved that Sam Rockwell came out of nowhere.
Well, and that was like so unhinged, in my opinion. I loved Sam Rockwell. I'll watch him, read the phone book. But I was like, what? It was just so bizarre. And
Yeah.
then I found out, I read a bit about it. He's married to Leslie Bibb. And I'm like, huh,
Oh,
nice little vacation for the two of them then.
nice.
And it's
I
like,
didn't know that.
he didn't do any harm to anything. I just felt like it was a very weird, like, oh, okay, we're doing this. I mean, it was a little odd.
But it revealed things about the other character that I was like, really? We're
yeah,
supposed to see him learning and growing, and
yeah,
this like, no, I didn't accept that. So
yeah.
yeah, I just I didn't like I don't want to watch rich people get away with stuff.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
it. That's it, Michael White. That's what I want you to hear from me. I don't want to watch rich people. If you're a rich person doing bad stuff, you need to die a horrible death.
Yeah.
And if you can't give me that, and you certainly had the opportunity to do that, and this idea that they've learned something, no, they didn't. They
Hmm.
really freaking didn't. So, but it'll win lots of Emmys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of them it really should, because if Parker Posey doesn't win an Emmy, I'm taking off my earrings and asking somebody to pull my
Yeah. Yeah.
she should
She's
win.
a light, and yeah, yeah, the indie queen. I love her. But yeah. Um,
And I love Carrie Coon, and I've always heard it pronounced Carrie Coons, but when I looked it up, this is what it said on IMDb. So I apologize if it's wrong, because I've always heard her say Carrie Coons. So I don't know, but I love her.
that's a good
Um,
question. Carrie Coon. Yeah, I guess there's no S. Okay.
but don't you always hear it that way? I hear her
Ew.
saying it,
She
saying
said,
Carrie Coons. It
oh,
was weird for me.
yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's fantastic.
yeah, she is
Okay,
fantastic.
so shall we go for the last one or not?
Well, I'm game if you are. You wanna?
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
It's all over,
Uh,
but let's do it.
we both were watching Good American Family, and we weren't sure if you were going to be able to finish in time, but you did,
I
and
did.
so now we can talk about it. The creator of this show is Kate Robbins, and of course, it stars Ellen Pompeo, Mark Duplass, and Imogene Faith Reed. This is a dramatization of the ripped from the headlines story about Natalia Grace, an orphan from Ukraine who was adopted by a Midwestern family. They believe she is a little girl with dwarfism, but according to their narrative, they suspect she's not a child, but rather a grown woman trying to scam them. What they did with this show is almost like Rashomon. It's like they tell you at the top of each episode whose point of view, whose story you're going to be hearing. And each person in this story has a very different narrative as to what's happening. And I thought that was probably the only way you could do this story. I thought that was really a really smart choice. And being a true crime fan, I'm very familiar with this story. I've watched several documentaries, and I've got a lot of opinions. Christine Barnett is played by Ellen Pompeo, and her husband Michael Barnett is played by Mark Duplass, and of course, the wonderful Imogene Faith Reed plays Natalia Grace. And Christine Barnett wrote a book called The Spark: A Mother's Journey Nurturing Genius and Autism. And it's about how she helped her son with autism realize his full potential and start college at 14. And it's I there are theories that she adopted Natalia in a way of like, I'm going to do it again, but with somebody else with a disability. I don't know. I'm not in the woman's head, so I couldn't tell you. But the way that it's presented, she's an ambitious gal in this show. Ellen Pompeo playing her as somebody that likes to be in charge and has a way of doing things. And it was frustrating to me because they do show that she was a child and they abandoned her at 9, but they say she was a 22-year-old woman. So it's this it's very conflicting. And I actually really love Mark Duplass. And if you've seen the documentaries, he did a good job of interpreting the way this Michael Barnett presents himself. Michael Barnett is a very over the top personality, very like vibrating at 11, and I feel like Mark Duplass did a great job with that. We've got a cameo, well, not cameo, but Christina Hendricks is in it as well. She plays somebody that wants to adopt her. And I don't know, this story, there's so many twists and turns to it. And it's ultimately it's kind of sad, but thankfully the real Natalia Grace seems to have landed well and is doing okay now. So I'm glad with that. It was odd. It was an odd show, and but I think they handled it the best they could, I think. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I didn't watch any of the documentaries, and I didn't know that it was based on a true story when I sat down to watch it. You had mentioned that you had seen it, and I knew that Ellen Pompeo, who I love, was in it, and Mark Duplass, who I love, and Mark Duplass, by the way, who's been a huge supporter of adults on the autism spectrum, huge. So yeah, he and his brother produced the film of the group. Why can't I think of what their name is? But it's a group of adult men who do stand-up comedy. They're a comedy troupe, and we are Asperger's is the name of the film, and he and his brother produced it. And so I got an opportunity to meet Mark when they came to LA and they were doing a performance, and he was there. He's a huge supporter of the autism community and adults working. It's lovely, lovely thing.
Lovely.
Um, and I love everything that he and his brother do, although their sense of weird is a little too weird for me sometimes, but I'm a big fan.
Mm.
Anyway, so I was like, you watched it and whatever. So I had no idea. And I have a friend who deeply has watched all the other things about the real life girl, and has talked to me about her before, but I didn't realize that that was the story. So, and I'm just no spoiler alerts here, but the first 5 minutes of it, you see this Ellen Pompeo character, and she's getting up to speak in front of this group of people about her journey with autism and her son and her book.
Mhm.
And listen, that hits a little close to home for me. I'm just going to say, so I was like, oh, I didn't know this was about autism. Like I had no idea. But then, the police come and that's almost the last time you hear about autism in this film.
Mm.
And I really just, you were the one who mentioned to me, read the thing at the beginning because it tells you whose point of view. And then I don't know, I was like 40 minutes into it. And I was like, wait a second, this is based on a true story. And I realized that I had followed the story of her son. We covered it on Autism Live. I had reached out to her to see if she wanted to be on the show to talk about her book. I'm pretty sure that she declined, but probably because she was going through all this at the
Mm.
time. So I was like, oh my, I actually kind of know this family
Mm.
in terms of following the autism part of this story. And I was like, what is this other thing?
Mhm.
Um, and and because it was told a lot of it in the first few episodes through her point of view, I was kind of buying the fact that there was a scam going on,
Right, right.
and then of course, we get to hear it from her point of view. And I've talked to my friend who's like, oh, but at the core, it's just a bad script that's
Mm.
badly directed.
Mm.
And I don't know how the actors did this, because in one scene you're playing the character one way, and then in another scene you're playing it, 2 episodes later you're playing a different. It just came off as very the actors come off as if they're phoning it in. It
Mm.
I didn't like that. I would think that would be a really hard task for an actor, because you're constantly like asking yourself, well, what's my motivation for this? Why am I doing this? And there was none in the later scenes when it's all from her point of view, which I get. That's a directing method, but it made me distrust everyone.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And and I've heard a lot since then about, things in the documentary, and that, as you said, that Mark's character, that he was doing a great job of playing, but it came off as like cartoony.
Well, and that's the thing. If you watch the real Michael Barnett, he is cartoony. And it's like, and I was wondering to myself, like, gosh, Mark Duplass has such a, I don't know, he's such a mellow affect to him.
Yeah.
How's he going to play this hysterical drama guy?
But
And
I
yeah,
didn't believe it.
yeah.
And
Well,
look, here's the
yeah.
same thing as when they were doing Naiad, and my complaint was that, Annette Bening, who I know to be a brilliant actress, was doing a brilliant representation of Diana Naiad, but it was uncompelling because she has this voice that's really annoying. And I was like, you can't just do an impersonation of somebody. You
Mhm.
got to make me believe
Yeah.
and character.
I benefited from seeing that Mark Duplass brought it down a couple notches because it's like I gotta tell you, it's at 11 with this guy in interviews he's done, and yeah, no, you would not believe the way this guy, I mean, it's just so I think I benefited from that in a weird way to see him. Well, he's not
Yeah.
doing it as over the top as he could, and but yeah, it was uneven. I'll give you that. It was
I didn't
definitely.
like the storytelling. I didn't like the storytelling at all. And it left me very confused, and it left me feeling dirty because I was rooting for the mom. And now you tell me more information. You tricked me. Like,
Mm,
I believed that she was a 22-year-old girl.
mhm,
I mean, I like all the pieces were falling into place. And then you're like, nope, sorry, we tricked you.
mhm,
And I just didn't, I don't like that. I don't like to be made a fool. Listen, surprise me,
mhm.
sure. But, out of nowhere, it felt very Deus ex machina. It's just out of nowhere. This is this, and now, oh, we tricked you. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm
Yeah,
crabby today. Can you tell? Like, I'm just crabby about all these things. I really need to see a really good movie.
it's good. It's good. You're speaking the truth, and that's okay. You're
Um,
speaking real opinions. I like it.
well, so here we are, and I guess my parting thing is, what are you watching right now
Oh, okay.
in the
Um,
future?
we're like very into Andor right now.
Ooh,
Really enjoying it. We actually had to watch the first season because we couldn't entirely I don't know, we didn't get through the first season. So we're really into Andor. We're watching Your Friends and Neighbors. That's the one with John Hamm.
me
Um,
too.
and I'm enjoying that. Um, I started rewatching The Last of Us because I want to watch the second season. And we yeah, so we haven't I just felt like there had been enough time that I needed to rewatch it, and boy,
Yeah,
is that such a good show.
yeah,
So I'm doing that. I'm trying to think of anything else. Looking forward to the Mission Impossible film being released, as
me too.
we're big fans. Um,
Yes.
and I think that's it off the top. How about you?
Hacks. I'm loving Hacks.
Yes, yes, that's
Um, and I love Call the Midwife, and I'm watching this new season of Call the Midwife, and they just have me by the adenoids, and loving that. Watching Your Friends and Neighbors, and enjoying that. Watching The Last of Us, trying to breathe through that. Um, but you know what? I didn't love the first two episodes, but now I'm really into it. Is The Studio?
I gave it another shot and I watched the second episode and uh I don't know if Michael, my husband, is like, oh, because the characters are annoying. And
Yes.
and so that I'm like, but that's kind of the point. So I'm okay with it. So I probably will keep going with that because I watched the one that the oneer, where they shot it in one shot,
Yeah.
which is apparently all the trend. And it was hilarious, so
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. So yeah,
I'm really kind of grooving on it, and that's a lot for me because I was not having it the first two episodes, but
yeah.
I'm into it now. So we'll see. But I need something new. I'm ready for something new. The Loss of the Pit was a big loss. We were also watching the new episode. Did you ever watch Traitors?
No, I know a lot of people really love that show.
Oh, I wish I was you. I just want to say to you the next time it's a rainy day, because like there's so many seasons of it now, and we've watched all of them. We've watched the United States version, we've watched the New Zealand version. I have to say that oh my gosh, I can't remember anybody's name right now, but I love him so much. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy.
Alan Cumming?
Alan Cumming, thank you.
I love
Alan Greer, and I was like, that's not who that is. Totally different. But Alan Cumming is, I would watch it just to see what he wears. We just thoroughly, and this last season had Boston Rob on it, from Survivor, and it was just, and so we were watching The Pit and Traitor, and oh, it was so good. And then they both ended, and I was bereft, and there we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Life goes on. Life goes on. Well, madam, it's always a pleasure to talk about these films with you and these TV shows. And we keep saying that we're going to start to do this just in podcast, and we might, although this also works doing this in this format. So we'll see what happens, you guys. But it's always such a delight. Tell them again where they should go to follow Taka so that they can get keyed into when because if you can get that lower price locked in, you guys, it's such a good deal.
It's a good deal. It's takanow.org. So TACANOW.org. Also, we have a Facebook group called Hope and Help for Autism. So if you can get into that as a parent, you have to be a parent caregiver. And that is a terrific place to get a lot of information from all these other parents that are going through what you're going through. So it's I can't recommend it highly enough. Back in the day, it was the Yahoo groups, if you remember.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's where we first met, was in the Yahoo groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's Facebook, and so yeah, it's that, you definitely stay clued into that.
Very cool. All right, you guys. We hope that you're loving the programming and that you'll tune back in. We'll be back to the, all autism all the time when next we meet. But hopefully within the next month, we'll be able to find a time to come and talk with you about, for instance, Mission Impossible, and get our review fresh off the press. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Moira, thank you always for everything. You're amazing. And it's such a pleasure. And we'll see you guys next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.